Hi, it's another episode of Let's Chat Sales, and this time Bob Graham and I talk about the importance of taking notes during your sales process and how to do it and where to focus your energy and how to think about it and some actionable tips. So, hope this is useful. By all means, if you like, then do so, like and subscribe and share with your friends. So let's get into it. Thanks. Hey, Bob, it's another edition of Let's Chat Sales.
Let's chat sales.
Here we go. And that never gets old, by the way. So we are going to talk about taking notes, something as simple as that.
Simple, but also difficult to people. I've heard people say, I can't take notes because I can't focus on the discussion and take notes at the same time.
Yeah. And everyone has a different style. And some people are so really meticulous about it. And I have to confess, I am not. I'm a big fan of notes, but I'm not, shall we say, anal retentive the way I think some people are when it comes to it. So
which works for them. So that's fine.
Different strokes for different folks, right? So let's talk about that. Let me start by saying in one of the more recent episodes, we talked about the importance of notes and being able to take notes as part of wrapping up the sales call in an effective way. And so I think,
and also that discovery process, right?
And
the whole process that if someone's telling you something
absolutely
important, it would be nice to document. So you're not going, wait, tell me again where your territories are, or how many employees do you have? Because that doesn't build trust 3 weeks later after you've had 10 discussions and you go, wait, what's your company doing again?
Yeah, you have to pay attention. So yes, that's right. Yeah. So where do we start?
May I start? Because I don't know if you know this, Brendan. I think you might, but I used to be a journalist. So being a journalist, you go out and you write stories, you document things. And I started to realize as I was going back looking at my notes that it was crazy to write down everything someone said. I started to learn that you need to write down the things that matter.
Right.
And a lot of the other stuff you'll keep in your head.
So how do you,
if someone uses a really good phrase,
yeah,
I'd write that down with quotation marks and use that phrase.
So how do you go about identifying the things that matter?
So I try to think about the things that make someone uniquely them or make the situation uniquely that situation. I'm looking for, if someone says, we have some real supply chain issues, it's all about Paraguay. I'm writing down supply chain in Paraguay. It's not about capturing every single word they say. You're not transcribing the transcript of the discussion. You're writing down the things that you think you might have to call on later.
Yeah, I listen for the key phrases. I want data points. I do want to know if they say we're in these markets or this is the reporting structure. If someone mentions a name and a title, I'm definitely writing those things down. I'm putting question marks by things. I have a certain kind of a hieroglyphics that I work with. If there's an action item, if I make a star with a circle around it, so I can see, these are the things I have to do. If it's a question, I put a big question mark next to it. And in my note taking, if it's an action item and I've been able to finish it, I use moleskins and notebooks and so forth. I'm still kind of paper-based because I can leaf through it. So I have this hieroglyphics, this sort of thing. And then when I finish something, if it's a do item, I'll strike through it. So that way I know, I've done that. And when I go and scan through my notebook and go backwards, I can quickly see the things that are still outstanding that need to get done. So my notebook is a bit of a to-do list. That works for me. Everybody has their own sort of methodology.
But you have to commit to taking notes. Absolutely. And I think that at its core, that's what our discussion really is about. It's why it's worth it to take notes, because I don't like when a salesperson calls me up a week later and asks me a question that I know I explained to them.
And on top of that, if you're in a sales environment where you're working with a team in any way, you want to be able to get other people up to speed as quickly as possible.
Correct.
And so that means having some notes. One of the things I would also caution people against is salespeople can sometimes become enamored with their CRM and start spending all their time loading everything in. And I find CRMs to be an enormous
customer relation management software.
Right. They can be a remarkable tool, but they can be a colossal waste of time. So it's important to have notes and put them into the CRM, but they should be notes that are going to be meaningful to somebody else. They're going to be meaningful from a search standpoint, and you're able to identify those unique characteristics about the customer so that you can keep those in mind. If they have kids that are playing soccer, that may be helpful to know. If they're a Ravens fan or a Patriots fan, then of course.
Or they tell you they love bourbon. I have a client that told me they love bourbon and said, what's your favorite bottle?
Yep.
And he told me, and I'm like, That's going in the CRM. Next time I see him, there's a bottle of that going in his lap, and he's going to say, I can't believe you remembered that.
Yeah. A smaller version of that you recommended later on. You recommended I try Old Granddad, and I got it, and it was great. And just in the same way, you've connected. If you've got those kind of notes in mind, especially if you can go back and search on that sort of stuff, that's great as well. Sometimes I put those things in my contacts for the phone, like when I meet somebody.
Yep.
When I have a first call with someone, I make sure I add their contact information and when I met them or how I met them. So if I'm introduced to someone by someone else, then I know that because it's searchable in my contacts list. And then you have that sort of stuff. And so your contacts list can be a really useful place to keep certain notes. And those things, when you get a phone call or you make a phone call, in the contacts, you can see right away, oh, they like bourbon, or they're a Ravens fan, or they've got kids in soccer, or what have you. And so that sort of stuff. And it's right at your fingertips.
Do you review your notes before you meet with a client typically?
Oh, yeah.
So you take the time. So if you have a call with me, say at 11 o'clock today, and I was a client, you would go and look at your notes that you've taken from the last meeting or from every meeting?
No, well, I would certainly look back and see what we've talked about in the past, what's open. I try to look at some of the stuff the day before to make sure that I don't have anything that I owe them that I haven't gotten to yet.
Promised that you haven't delivered on.
Yeah, I don't have a big problem with that, but I do look back to see what we talked about. I find that it's helpful just to refresh. That makes the conversation easier for them, because if I remember stuff from our last conversation, then I can easily prompt them. And that's sort of doing them a favor. It means that they don't have to do quite as much homework sometimes. It speeds things along. It makes the conversation much more efficient. And I think this goes back to the idea that you want to be able to be efficient for other people. If you can give them time back, if you can make the conversation more productive, and notes help you to do that.
And show your level of engagement. I'm amazed if someone mentions me in the first call and 6 months later it's their birthday and I'm on the phone with them around there and I'm like, isn't your birthday around now? There's like, God, how'd you know that? I'm like,
it's in the calendar. I put it in the calendar.
Exactly. Which is really not hard to do. There's at least one founder who's listening to this right now and going, I'm talking to my customers about my product or service. I just want to sell something to them. I don't want to take notes. I just want them to buy my product. You say to that?
Yeah. Going about it all wrong. I think that.
All right. Wow.
No
missing words from Brendan today.
No. Yeah. I think if you're focused on just making the sale, then that telegraphs really well, and you're going to alienate the people you're talking to because their interests are elsewhere. Their interests are in understanding you, understanding whether or not you're someone they can trust and rely on. The sale will oftentimes take care of itself. And if it's not a good fit because your product doesn't meet their needs, and I say this over and over again, you've kind of done them and yourself a favor. You've got a relationship at some level. You've talked, you've been authentic, you've been focused on the right things. Being attentive and being invested in a real conversation. And those things will pay off somehow. They just do. Whereas if you are singularly focused on trying to get them to buy something, that will backfire on you almost all the time. And so I think that having some genuine interest and being able to document it pays off. In some ways, you don't know how. You just don't know where it's going to, but it will.
I couldn't agree more. I would add one more tip that just popped into my head, which is have a place where you're putting stuff. You talked about using moleskin notebooks, or I use a legal pad. What I try to avoid doing is putting notes on the back of an envelope and then on the back of a napkin and the back of a receipt and 18 different places, because I find that there's no system.
I'm a big fan of the perfect is the enemy of the good. So a good system that you use is much better than a perfect system that you find to be an obstacle or to be overwhelmingly hard to implement. Mm-hmm. Like I put contact information in my phone, which is really easy to do. And you can have notes in there that are applicable to them, little background stuff. Then I put birthdays in calendars, and that's what I use. Or I sometimes put them in the CRM, but not really that often.
He's never wished me a happy birthday, people. I've known him for like 7 or 8 years. He's never wished me a happy birthday.
All right. When's your birthday, Bob?
December 17th. December
17th. All right. Let's just see if that's in the calendar or not. I'm going to be disappointed if I think you're wrong. December 17th.
I would remember, I'm the
I don't know.
sidekick.
You're not in there.
When the host, when the most
You're not.
important person in my life says happy birthday to me, I'm well aware of it. So I don't think that's happened.
Oh, God, I love that. That seems sincere the way you said it. So, So, Bob, so hold on a second. Repeats. Hold on. We're doing this right now. Annually.
I see this. This is a great test case.
Yeah. I don't want to make it a Zoom. Like, what am I doing here?
So, folks, if you're listening, because you're not watching, Brendan is actually on his computer now, and he's trying to look up, I think on his calendar, December 17th.
No, I got it. It's done.
And am I there?
And we're there. You're now memorialized forever. It's repeating.
So I was not.
You were not. And here's why that is. Because
I think this is important. I'm not offended. It's actually a great test case. Why wasn't I included? And the reality is, I'm not a client of yours.
Well, no, that's not the reason. The reason is you haven't mentioned your birthday inadvertently in a conversation. If you had said, "Oh, my birthday is on December 17th," I would have noted it immediately and put it in. That's how I don't go out and ask someone, "Hey, when's your birthday?"
Okay.
Because to me, that's sort of creepy. But if someone says, "Oh yeah, well, my birthday was last Tuesday," I look at Tuesday and go, "Oh," and then I write it in the calendar. So that's how I know people's birthdays, not because I ask them, and because then it's sort of interesting. Oh, like, how did you know that?
Right.
So that's where I put birthdays or anniversaries or other things, important dates like that. That's also where I put a note sometimes to say, "Oh, I should call this guy again in 3 months." I'll put that in my calendar, or I put that in the CRM. But just whatever it makes sense. But the thing is this goes back to my point, is use a system that works for you. If it's paper, great. But one source of paper, it's a notebook. And you can have a stack of notebooks, and that way you can look back, and it's not as searchable as having in a CRM or whatever. But if it works for you and it's readily available, then that's the way to go. My gal she types notes as she's talking. Now she can type like a maniac. And so that works for her. And she can type without looking at the keyboard, whereas it's gibberish to me. And so I'm not typing that sort of stuff. And she can type notes and boom. It's a little distracting, in a meeting. But so for me, I'll be talking to you and I'll write something down as I talk. I don't ask permission. I just do it. I have my notebook out, and my notebook's out like from the start of the call. It's just it's the first thing that's out. Right. So
and I would tell you, if someone's getting into this to begin with and doesn't normally take notes, start with the notebook.
Yep. Simple.
Don't start with the CRM. It gets complicated. But notebooks are just so much better in the end, because you can chronicle something.
Yeah. They're fast. You can draw. You can put like arrows to things.
Color coded if you choose. I know people use highlighters, and they highlight, if it's an important thing that they have to follow up on, it's green, it's yellow if they already did it.
Yeah, now you lost me there.
The key is to commit to whatever the system is.
Whatever the system is, but don't overcomplicate. That's my advice.
Right. So, and you're not obligated to take notes the way you did it in college or high school. I'm giving you permission to walk away from college and high school note taking. As someone who actually taught note taking to college and high school students, I'm telling you, you are now free to create whatever you want to create. I'm giving you the power. By the power invested in me, by the world that we live in.
Here we go.
I give you the power.
This is what an out of control sidekick looks like, people, listeners. This is what happens when it goes to their head and they think like we are off the trail.
I was making a point. So Brendan, I think we've given people plenty. Can I suggest to people, if you know someone in your life who struggles with note taking, or they brought the topic up to you, hey, share this with them.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yeah, well, I think we're good. I've had a good time
out of this episode, don't you?
What's that?
I think we beat the crap out of this episode, don't you?
Manner of speaking.
Okay.
Can we do it again sometime, Brendan, or is this the last one?
No, we're definitely doing this again, because you know what? We can do better.
See you, everyone.
See you. Okay, so that was another episode of Let's Chat Sales. I hope you liked it, and please, if you did, like and subscribe. And you might want to check out this episode. I don't know that. I think there should be something there. All right. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye.